In this module, we'll show you the first of our 4 key pillars, which is exploring your model. When you first open up a model, you'll see a few statistics about your different objects at the top, but really the main event is this automatically generated diagram of your model here. You'll see all of the cubes within your model and all of the relationships between them. By default, you'll just be seeing the summary of all of the flows, though if you want to get a little bit more detailed, we have a number of different options in the drop-down menu here, such as if we wanted to break out between the rule flows in one color arrow and the process flows in another color arrow. You can select that. And you'll see the diagram automatically change to reflect this new view that we've selected. You can also customize this diagram by clicking the drop-down arrow here. And we might want to create a view, and maybe we don't need to worry about our KPIs, and we don't need to worry about our dates cube. So we can select those, refresh our diagram, and now we have a brand new diagram with those specific cubes excluded. And from here you can also save this diagram. So if you want to refer to it later, you can create this custom diagram, save it, and give it a name. We'll just use this no KPI diagram. We'll say OK. So now if you want to get back to that same view of your model, you can just select it then from this drop-down arrow. You can do the same thing but only include specific cubes by changing this toggle right here. So now once you're viewing your model, again, this is not just a static image of your model, this is an interactive diagram as well. So for example, from here we can click on a specific cube. I'll pick the PL cube here. What you'll be able to do then is you see this new diagram appears focused specifically on this cube and all of the flows in and out of it. You'll have, similar to the drop-down on that main model page, you'll have tabs for the different types of flow diagrams, which you can click through here. You'll also have information about this specific cube, such as a list of all of your dimensions, rules, processes, views, and properties as well. So now we can continue to drill even deeper into this diagram. So we see there's an ODBC connection here, and maybe we want to see how that information flows in. There's a couple ways to do that. We can either click specifically on this arrow and it'll take you to that process, or if we find it in the list of our processes here, we can click on it here. And what that will do is take you to the specific process referenced by that arrow. You'll see an overview including all of your different types of comments, data source and data source type. We can see that's that ODBC connection that we noted, the different parameters, etc. You can also, again, see another different diagram here. We've got summary flows, which you'll see by default here, as well as an execution diagram. And you'll even be able to get down to the level of the line-by-line process script itself, as well as if there is any in the particular process, you'll be able to see the data source query here as well. So to recap, very quickly, you can go from a top-down view of your entire model, and in just a couple clicks, you can dig into a cube, into a process, and all the way down into the line-by-line script of that process. From there, we can also explore in another way, which is using these tabs on the left side here. So we can explore our cubes by clicking the cubes option, and you'll see the list of all of the cubes within this model. We can select any of them. We'll go to our assets cube this time, and again you'll get your diagram, and just like we did with the PL cube earlier, you'll be able to investigate the dimensions, the rules, etc. And you can continue to drill in just like we did previously. From here you can drill into a specific dimension, down to the elements, attributes, etc. You can also get to the dimensions by selecting the Dimensions tab. You'll see some additional information here, whether each dimension is updated only manually or by a process. And again, you can drill into any particular dimension and look at all of the various attributes of it. Same thing you can do, again, with processes and chores as well. So you can explore each of these different types of objects and drill into them to see more and more granular detail about each. Another thing that you can explore is this cube and dimension analysis. And what this will allow you to do is really get a visual grid view of the relationships between your cubes and your dimensions. So we can customize this. We can add dimensions manually that you might want to compare. So here's our list of cubes, and then we can see where those intersections are. If, for example, we want to see all of the dimensions related to the KPI cube, we can click on this 6 next to the list. And then now you'll see all 6 of the dimensions related to the KPI cube along the top here, and you'll see all of the intersections with the other cubes showing up in this grid. You'll also be able to flip the axes. So now if we want, we can put our dimensions, list all of our dimensions on the left, and then what you'll see is the cubes in the columns. So you can similarly, if we look at our currency, for example, we can click on that 6 number, and then we'll see all of the cubes that that currency dimension resides in. This can also give you a view of dimensions that you might want to investigate. For example, this account dimension is not associated with any cubes, which obviously doesn't necessarily mean that it's not used anywhere and should just be deleted. It might be used as a placeholder in processes, etc., but it might give you something to look at. Finally, we have user and group analysis. And what this will allow you to do is take sort of a high-level view of your security settings, your group settings, etc. So you'll get a brief overview at the top here, admin, read and write users, object summaries, and statistics. So if you had users with no access to cubes, users with admin to specific cubes. So a starting point for something like a security audit. You can also look at the user and group summary, and you'll get, similar to that cube and dimension analysis, you'll get a grid here of each user, or if we switch to our groups tab, each group and their specific security options here. User and group profiles, we can add multiple sections here by object if we like. We can add, or we can change which user we're looking at, or we can compare 2 users. For example, if we use Michael and Claire here, we'll be able to see side by side their read and write access to any number of different objects that we select up here. So if you have a new user that should have the same access as an existing user, you can use this compare drop down and you can see where there might be discrepancies between the two. And finally, we have object analysis. So we can see the security permissions of a particular object. So if we click our cubes, for example, we can look at a specific cube. We can change that and we'll be able to see each group and whether they have read or write access to that object. And again, you can do the same thing for dimensions, processes, and chores here by selecting these different options.